everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. Well, today I'm here to bring you guys a paranormal story. This is going to be one that happened to my brother. I did my paranormal story for you guys, and I asked if you guys wanted to hear about my brother's ordeal, and I did get a few yeses. So last week I talked to my brother, and because he had told me this story about 7 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. But I didn't remember all the details, you know? So last week he gave me a call and I picked his brain about it, and I have notes. I have notes down here. So, because I wanted to get it right. But before I get on to the story and telling you guys, I do want to say this before I continue. I feel like it's important for me to say it. Take it for what it's worth. Yeah, but I believe in this stuff, okay? I believe in the paranormal. I believe that playing with things like the Ouija board, going to haunted houses, playing with tarot cards and all this other stuff leads to an opening of yourself. And that's what you do when you do tarot cards and you play the Ouija board. You are opening yourself up, you know, to the spirit world. And when you do that, things can happen. And so the only thing I want to say is I don't do it. I don't practice this. I don't do any of this stuff. And if you do, all I'm asking is just maybe do a little research, and then maybe also just keep your guard up. You know what I mean? That's all. Just keep your guard up. You know, that's all. I just feel like I need to say that. You know, this is all about a scary story that really happened. But it is serious stuff, and we should take it serious and know that when we open ourselves up, that things can happen. You know, just like my paranormal story was a beautiful and it gave me peace, and I was opened in that moment of my contemplation. At that moment, it's a good thing, but the opposite can happen as well. I believe that to be true. So just know that I'm telling you this story, but just be very, very cautious. That's all. And take that however you want. You know, I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. I'm just sort of feel like I need to say that before I go on. Okay. All right. So let's just get right to this. After talking to my brother, though, I did remember a couple of things that did happen to me. So I will be doing more of these stories, good stories, and then throw in what happened to me when I was first married to my first husband. I'll throw it in there because somebody did say that they would love to hear my other stories as well. So I'll be doing a few more, not too many more, but a few more. All right, let's get on to my brother's story. Okay, my brother, it happened to two of my brothers. They bunked together. We had a 3-bedroom house, but I remember my mom, she went ahead and added an extension to the house. And one of those extensions was a master bedroom that laid in the back of the house. And so the main house was a 3-bedroom house. So my two youngest brothers bunked together. Then my oldest brother had what was the master bedroom, and then I've always had the medium-sized bedroom, or maybe it was actually the smaller of the bunch bedroom, but I've always had that since we moved in when I was 4. So what happened was my brother brought, I believe this was not the brother I talked to, not my brother A. We'll call him Al. That's his name, Al. Hey, Al. I know you're watching. Anyways, my brother, so it was my other brother who brought a toy Ouija board. It wasn't like the wooden ones, okay? It was just a cardboard one. He brought it over and they were like, oh, let's play this, right? Now, it's really interesting because I did ask my brother a couple questions about them playing the board, and that if it was very like if it was, like the days that they didn't play it, were they attracted to it, to want to play it? And he said, yeah, it did. Like they kept like wanting to play it. And it's interesting because I asked him that question because in my religious studies course, we did talk about that, the paranormal, talked about that mystery of it. And it's actually, I have it here because I wanted to make sure I got it right. And it's actually a phrase. It's called Mysterium Tremendum e Fascinan. And I know fascinan is fascinate, right? And mysterium is mystery, right? But basically that phrase means, mystery means repel, and then fascinate means attract. So basically it's the mystery that both repels and attracts. And that's what they were dealing with. And that's what all paranormal, it's like that, right? It's a mystery that repels you, but it's an attraction that fascinates you. And that's why I asked my brother, and he said, yeah, they were at first. Anyways, so they were around 14 years old, 14, 15 years of age, when they first played it. And he said that what they wanted to do was, when they got the planchette, that they wanted to scrape it, like they wanted to move it. You know, they didn't want to ask any questions. They didn't want to do that. They just kind of sort of wanted to move it. And they wanted to see if, you know, if they can feel each other's force in moving it. And he says what he noticed was that when they first did it, he noticed that there was a scraping of the board. Now, sometimes he said that then they said, okay, well, don't press too hard, but just enough to move it. He said that it was still a sort of scraping of the board. But when the spirits moved it, he said it was real smooth. It was just almost gliding. And it was such a difference feeling. I asked him, did they play with it only at night? He said, no, they played with it when they both were able to get together. So it wasn't like a specific time. He says, we would play with it during the day. We would play with it during the night. There wasn't no specific time. He said that one night they were playing with it, and he said it was during the day when this particular time, and they said for the first time they felt the board, the planchette move real smooth, and they both looked at each other because they knew something was happening. So they started moving, or it started moving, and it said that it would forever, it would do like this figure eight forever. And he says that it's not like something like where you ask it a question and it answers you right away. He says some days, Laura, we would play it and nothing would come through, like nothing. And then some days, you know, they got responses. He says most of it was just like regular stuff. Like at first it was just like, kind of like, oh, wow, you know, kind of thing. But then it started to get real serious on this one particular day. He said they were playing with it and somebody named Bobby came through. And he said that they asked Bobby, you know, where he was from. And it said it was from heaven. And they were both, my brother said, like, oh, wow, kind of neat, you know. And then they asked him, well, how did you die? And he said, or he or she said that it had to do with a tree, like an accident with a tree. Now, I asked my brother, did he say he crashed into a tree, or did a tree fall on him, or was he on a tree and he fell from a tree? My brother said he never said anything other than it was an accident from a tree. That's all it said. A couple months after, he said that they played it again. And this time he said it was at night and the lights were on in the bedroom, okay? The lights were on. And they pulled it out and they started to play with it. And all of a sudden, he said he could feel it moving. So I started doing the figure eight. And he said all of a sudden, Laura, he said the bedroom light turned off. And he said that they both looked at each other, and then my brother got up and he turned on the light. He went to go turn on the light and it wouldn't turn on. Now, he said that he didn't check the light bulb or anything like that. He just thought it was really weird. Like all of a sudden the light turns off, right? So he said he opened the door. He looked down the hallway because his room sits right at the end of the main hall, the only hall to the house. It was a small house. And, he said he saw down the hall, the living room, part of the living room, and the lights were on. And then on this side were the two bathrooms. And then over here was my bedroom and then the other bedroom. Okay. So he thought some lights were on, he said. So he shut the door. He said, okay, let me get a flashlight. He had a flashlight. He got the flashlight. He said when he turned on the flashlight, it was a strong light, Laura. It wasn't like a dim light. It wasn't like it was going down. You know, it was a strong light. They sat it down and they started to proceed to play again and start asking questions. And they asked, one of the questions they asked was, you know, who's coming? Can we speak to some spirits, some powerful spirits? I said, did you specifically say powerful? He said, yes. We had been talking to Bobby, he said, but we wanted somebody different, more powerful. They said, no, you could not talk to somebody powerful. I kept saying no. He said they asked a few times and all of a sudden the battery went down. It went dead. So at that point they looked at each other and then my brother went to go get the flashlight, which was laying right next to them kind of. He reached over, got the flashlight, turned it on and off, on and off. He said the lights went out. Meanwhile, they tried to turn on the bedroom light. It wouldn't turn on. So he says, Laura, I can't give you 100% like this is what happened, but I really can almost remember. And he goes, but I can't give you like 100%. But I remember, Laura, I did put new batteries in there. Like I went and got batteries and I put it in and I turned it on because I remember the light, the flashlight, we used it again. So, I remember putting lights on new batteries. I sat it down. We started asking questions again. We said, can we please talk to a more powerful spirit? And it started doing the figure 8 and it said no. He said it must have said no like 4 or 6 times. It said no. And then boom, the battery went down again. No more light again. He said at that point, they stopped playing. Now, I never did ask him if the light in the bedroom went back on. That'd probably be a good question to ask him. I don't know if he'd remember. I'm not sure. But that's what happened that night. And they were like a little freaked out. They were a little shook up about it. The next night, they asked more questions and Bobby came through. He said that they said, Bobby, are you Bobby from heaven? And it said no. And my brother said that at that moment, it was like both of them stared at each other and they knew that Bobby was the Bobby from the other night, but that it wasn't from heaven. It was more, they knew this was something very cynical. And they said, they asked him or her, were you the one who turned off the lights the other night? And it said yes. So then they said, why did you turn off the lights? And he said that the planchette, he said all of a sudden started going really fast again. It answered after they said, well, why did you do it? And that the planchette was moving a lot faster. When it started to spell, it said, because the fat one told me to. They said, well, then let us talk to the fat one. Like we don't want to talk to you. Let us talk to the fat one. And it said no. So my brother said that he noticed that the planchette was going pretty fast. The figure 8 was going pretty fast. And they said, well, why not? And it just kept saying no. And then they would insist, well, we want to talk to the fat one. And they would say no. Why not? Why don't you let us talk to the fat one? And he said all of a sudden, he said he remembers they were both looking at each other. My brothers were looking at each other and the figure 8 slowed down. And they thought that, it's over, because they noticed, they kind of get that feeling, that it slowed down. So they kind of had this feeling that it was going to stop, but it didn't. It said, because, so it spelled out because the fat one will kill, and then it went to the Y. My brother said when it got to the Y, they knew instantly what it was going to spell out, and they both at the same time released their hands from the planchette. That was enough. He said that was it. And they said that they stood there for a while just staring at each other. Yeah. So they stopped playing. They stopped playing for about a year. And at this point, my brother remembers that I was no longer at the house after the year because they no longer bunked together. One of them took my bedroom. And I asked him what happened to the board. He said my brother got rid of it, that other board. He must have had it, he said, but I don't really know what he really did with that one, the toy one. He must have had it for a while and then must have got rid of it, he said. Anyways, a year later, they were at school and one of the friends brought over a real one, a wood one, real. It was a real authentic Ouija board. And they were playing with it in the classroom. I don't know how they managed to do that. Like, we went to the same school. I don't know what teacher allows. I don't know what teacher allows for a Ouija board to be played. But he goes, yep, we played it in school and it did nothing. It didn't work. It didn't move. Nothing. So the friend ended up giving it to my brother. Now, the other brother, not the one I was talking to, my other brother. He brought it home. They had said at school, though, they had said, hey, let's all meet up at my house and we'll play it as a group. So they brought it over, and I remember this is a year later. So they brought it over, and I don't remember if it was like the same day or if my brother and my two brothers played with the real one for a while, and then later on they made a date for everybody to come over. I'm not quite sure on that. I didn't ask. But it was a wooden one that they played in high school that did not work. Brought it over at some point, or maybe that same day. They got a bunch of friends to come over and they were all going to play. And this was during the day. He said, Laura, it had to have been around 3:30. They were in the room and they were playing it, and they had asked a few things. And he said it was working. It was, it hadn't worked at the school, but it was working at home. So it was working. And then one of the friends during the session showed up. Okay, he showed up. So he went in. He was a skeptic. Okay, he didn't believe in it, and he was a real skeptic. And my brother was like teasing him, you're just scared, and he's like, no, you guys are freaking moving it, that's. And they said, okay, I'll tell you what, you ask the question, okay, but you don't play, like you don't put your hand on it. Just ask the question, something none of us in this room knows, none of us. And they were like, okay, because he started thinking of things that he can ask and none of them knew. And they told him, do not touch it. We're gonna do it. He said, all right. So he asked the question. He goes, I have a keychain in my pocket. What is the initial on that keychain? My brother initially thought, oh, really? Okay. It's probably your darn initial R. That's what my brother thought. But my brother said, I did tell him to tell us something that we would not answer, like we would not know. So my brother they all put their hands on the planchette, minus the friend. They all put their hands on the planchette and they asked, what initial is on the keychain in R's pocket? He said that it was doing the figure 8, and he knew, my brother and my two brothers knew that it was going to answer or he didn't know it was going to answer, but he knew something was moving it, not any of them, because they already got to know the noise and the feeling on the planchette. And he said it took a little bit, and it rested on the initial S. So at this point, my brother said that they looked up at him, all of them, because they wanted to know if this was true. When they looked over at him, he said he was trembling. He was shaking, like his whole body was just trembling. And he lost color in his face, and he was trembling. And everybody's like, oh, are you okay? Are you okay? And he said, yeah. And he put his hand in his pocket, and when he pulled it out, it was an S. And they're like, oh, wow, why do you have an S in your, why is there an S? He says, today, of all days, my car broke down and I really wanted to come Like, I really wanted to be here. But my car broke down. And he said, I begged my sister to let me borrow her car. And she did. And her name starts with an S. It's her car that I'm driving. And this is her keychain, and it starts with an S. And my brother said that at that point, they stopped playing, and he stopped playing it. I asked him, what did he do with the board? You know, what did you guys do with the board? He did say that my other brother got rid of it. I don't know how or what he did, but he got rid of it. Like I said, I'm not sure if he gave it back to the owner or whatever. I've asked him, has he played with that ever since? And he said no. No. He says, I'm done. You know, and I'm happy you're not playing with it anymore. I know he's watching. But yeah, so those are the things that happened to him. And I think personally for me, I mean, I can't say for sure at all. I mean, I'm not pretending to know everything, but I think you play something like that long enough and you don't adhere to those, you know, like if he wouldn't adhere to what was like he felt to not do it anymore, I don't know what could have happened. I'm not sure. But you hear countless stories of people playing with it and they're in situations that are just absolutely terrible. So anyways, I'm glad that he stopped playing with it. Yeah. Now I do have other stories that's happened in my life and that has happened to my family. And then in the midst of talking to my brother on the phone, he reminded me of a situation that happened with me that I had totally forgot. And I'm not going to say it here. I'm going to continue making these videos. My battery's going to die. I'm going to continue making these videos because I have a few more, because somebody on here, I had asked if you guys wanted to hear my other paranormal stories, the good ones, and you guys said you guys wouldn't mind. So I did get a few of you who said that, or a couple of you who said that. So I want to bring that to you guys. And in one of those stories, I will let you know. I'm going to keep these notes so I remember to tell you what did happen to me that was odd. It wasn't scary, but it was odd. It was really, really odd. And then it ended up happening to my brother as well. All right, my friends, I'm going to end it here because this is going to shut me off. Take care, and I will see you guys very, 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 very soon, and stay safe. All right, bye.